Is reflexivity the future of education? That there is the question that we'll consider today. Charles Peirce said that people who build castles in the air, for the most part, accomplish little. And this is true. But every man who does accomplish great things is given to building elaborate castles in the air. So is building castles in the air a form of reflexivity? And that there is one of the questions that I'll ask you to consider as we go through this. Uh, so we're looking at the reflexive imperative by Margaret Archer. And what is reflexivity? So reflexivity is the ability to have internal conversations with yourself. It's with the individual with respect to the social context and vice versa. So building the castles in the air is that a conversation with yourself, an internal conversation. So Archer says that the advantage of reflexivity is that it allows people to do or follow the path that means the most to them or what they care most about. And uh, in society and in schooling and work, we succeed with our strengths and our passion. So in that sense, it would appear that reflexivity suits um, the success of individuals because it's with your passion that there is a primary component of your ability to succeed, achieve, and move forward in our world. The disadvantage of reflexivity is that sometimes the path that is taken is not appropriate. So from an educational point of view, that there's one of the considerations is when you do allow reflexivity, then sometimes the path that the individual, the student, takes may not be the most appropriate or most beneficial. And sometimes if it's not beneficial at that point in time, if there is reflexivity uh, involved with it, then it can be beneficial in the long term. So the immediate consequence sometimes is not necessarily reflective of the long-term benefit of reflexivity. So in terms of schools, what's the relationship of reflexivity to schooling or education? Is it applicable to schools? So when we look at society and education, I feel that we're in a stage of nascent morphogenesis. And this is where the changes are emerging in our society. And there's two things that I'll address in terms of that are contributing to this nascent morphogenesis. The first is knowledge and the volume of knowledge. So today, in our world, we have a tremendous amount of knowledge. It's impossible to be an expert in all forms of knowledge. And it's whereas if you go back to the Renaissance, the time of the 16th century, etc., then people like Descartes and Kant, even before that, they were the term a Renaissance man was a term that defined an individual who was an expert in all areas of knowledge or many areas of knowledge. So it could be from music to medicine to mathematics to literature over a really broad scheme of different subject areas, and they were considered an expert in all areas because the amount of knowledge that was available or known at that point in time was uh, really small compared to what it is today. The second consideration is that for the first time in since mankind, is that youth now are becoming experts and they're emerging as experts where they have more knowledge than their parents, more knowledge than their teachers. And so this here is, in a sense, I think representative of emerging or nascent morphogenesis. So the question is how is it that this nascent morphogenesis that we are seeing in society today, how is it that this here affects education now or will affect education in the future? So in terms of the knowledge and the volume of knowledge, then the first thing is that if you look at traditional schooling, the teacher was the expert. The teacher gave the information to the student, and the student learned the information and gave it back with very minimal amount of reflexivity. Whereas today, with the volume of knowledge, it's more important that the individual has the ability to reflect on what it is that they want to achieve, and to be able to find the source the answer rather than to be able to give the answer. There are some things that, uh, yes, they require an answer on a basic level, but in general, it's more important that they can source or find or know how to find the answer as opposed to being expected to know everything. The second piece is in terms of students being the experts. And this area is one area that I feel is critical that we teach reflexivity, because as students, if they are the experts, then it's their ability to be able to reflect on and have these internal conversations with themselves so that they can emerge and build these elaborate castles in real life, so that they can see and they can learn from what it is that they do. Uh, at one point, Archer mentions in terms of the habits and habitus, and the and she kind of states that they're not reliable in the new age, and that there is because of the change. So it's the morphogenic change in society and the contextual discontinuity within society, that it's continually changing. Things are becoming unfamiliar over time. And if you look at habits, they are predictable, and people are used to maintaining their habits. It's familiar to them. They know exactly what it is to expect. Whereas in the morphogenic society with contextual discontinuity, then it's not always predictable what it is that's going to be. And if you, in Joseph's blog, he mentioned about the 4 stages of reflexivity, and uh, one area of that was the part of what it is that you do when things go wrong and how you reflect on that there to make it right. And so that there is a part of education today is to be able for students to be able to reflect on what it is that they're doing, so that they and have this internal conversation so that they can move forward to a right or a better solution. And just to finish, um, morphostasis, uh, I'll look at my next question, or what I'll finish with, is the question of um, administrationally and the structural foundation of education is siloed in terms of today, that there is the way it is. And so my question is that I'll leave you with is, if we look at and see reflexivity as an integral component of the new education, and then how is it that this here will affect the current siloed structure of power and power base in educational administration um, in our society. So that's it for today. Thanks, and I hope that this works out okay.